this talk, and the title is How to Be Courageous. That's the title. And if you are wondering my name, I don't think you have to wonder much. It's already down there. So, but what I'm talking about today is how to be courageous. This is the second part. The first part was on courage, and so this second part is how to be more courageous. And so here is like a brief recap of what happened the first time. The first time, right, what we were talking about is what courage is, and what courage is having the ability to do the things that are difficult, the things that maybe you don't want to do, but they are necessary. That's what courage is. And there's that misconception people have, when it comes to courage, in the sense that they think that courage is for, like when they talk about courage, they think of all these great historical figures like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, all these people that did great things, that were able to show the world that, that they are now afraid and they were pushing their purpose, So, but that is not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about, the courage we're talking about is the courage to live your life, the courage to go for your dreams, the courage to aspire to be more, the courage to not be complacent in what you are doing, that's what we're talking about, So, today, like I said, I'm going to tell you about how to be more courageous, And the reason why courage is important, you may ask, why is courage important? Courage is important because we live in a time where there is so much fear. There's so much fear. There's so much worry. People are worried about things about maybe they cannot afford food. They may lose their job, People are afraid of getting COVID. People are even afraid of, they don't have enough likes on social media, I don't have enough followers on Instagram. People are afraid of that. I'm worried about that. So, in this modern time, we need to be courageous, And the first, they will give you like 6 things you need to know about courage, to live a courageous life. The first, number 1, is to admit that you are afraid. That thing seems to be very difficult, especially for black men, young black men, or even older black men, We have been raised by our parents to be like Teflon Don, like the people that don't fear anything, anything can happen. I'm not afraid of that, I'm not afraid of this, and you always hear it, right? So they raise some of them to not be afraid of anything, But the problem is we are all afraid, Men, women, children, we are afraid. Some, I don't care how nicely dressed or handsome or how composed the brother is, he has fears, and he has fears. So, I don't care how composed the brother is, how handsome he looks, how fancy his clothes is or whatever, or how much jewelry he has on, he has fears, Everyone has fears. And before I used to think like psychopaths don't have fear, but after reading some journals, I've come to see even psychopaths have fear, A part of their amygdala is impaired. They feel fear. Maybe they don't feel fear as other people, but they feel fear. So that tells you that everyone has fears, There are some things that a lot of people are worried about, A lot of things that make them fearful, It can be anything, So admit that you are afraid. That is the first step. And I know a lot of people believe that if a man says he's afraid, it means he's not a strong man, or he's a weak man, or he's afraid. It's a lie. It takes a lot for a man to admit that he's afraid, because a man, especially in Nigeria, is in a culture whereby you don't admit that you are vulnerable. So it takes a lot for a man to admit he's vulnerable and is afraid, So that's number 1. Number 2, face your fears. That's number 2. Face your fears. It's one thing to say you're afraid, which everybody is, but some people make the mistake, they make this terrible mistake of running away from their fears, I'm afraid of getting a job, so I don't go for job interviews, or I'm afraid of being in a relationship, so I don't want any girlfriend, because I'm afraid I don't want any girlfriend, I'm afraid of traveling abroad, so I don't want to go to any airport, I don't want to go to the airport. You cannot live that way, man. You cannot live. If you are living that way, you are letting the fear control you, and that is not being courageous. If you remember what courage is, doing the things that are difficult. That's what courage is. Doing what you know you have to do, even though they're difficult. Always remember that anytime you live, you are being fearful. Remember that you're allowing the fear control you. And courage is doing that thing that you know you're supposed to do, even though you feel afraid or something, So face your fears. You see, a lot of us, we live our life a certain way. And listen up, this may be you. We live a life in a situation whereby we only do things that we're comfortable with. We do that in our day-to-day life. We don't put ourselves in situations that will make us afraid. Any situation that makes us afraid, we just avoid it. Any situation that makes us afraid, we avoid it. And that's not the way to live. You must, in your personal day, try and do things that scare you. Try and do things that make you vulnerable. Do it. That is very, very important. In your personal day, you may decide to take another route to work that you're not familiar with. You may decide to maybe enter a downfall, even though you always try. Just try and spice it up. It takes courage to try new things. You understand what I'm saying? So facing your fears is good. And what you also have to understand about fear is that the moment you give in to fear, what you realize is that fear is like a virus. If you have it here, it's going to transmit to other areas in your life. Let's say, for example, I'm afraid of relationships, right? And since you're afraid of relationships, then you are going to be afraid of talking to girls. Then if you're going to be afraid of talking to girls, then you will be afraid of marriage. You see? So you need to pay attention to that. That's the toxic nature of fear. So you must be able to face your fears. So that's the second part. So the third part is change the voice in your head. You see, the reason why a lot of people,